description of the trustee role, potentially burdensome to the court by raising questions such as the level of force that may be used to secure the defendant during home detention, and undermined by what the judge described as Epstein's failure to provide a complete picture of his personal finances. Yeah, they were under a deadline. They were supposed to report everything that Epstein owns. And they couldn't do so because they said it was too expansive. They ran out of time. Yeah, sure they ran out of time. Yeah, I don't believe that one, folks. You shouldn't either. In denying Epstein bail, the judge agreed with the determination by prosecutors from the Manhattan U.S. Attorney's Office that Epstein would likely flee the country if released from jail, even under house arrest. The judge wrote that several factors made Epstein a classic flight risk. His significant wealth and resources, including his ownership of a private plane, his limited family ties in the United States, and the potential 45-year prison sentence he faces if convicted, quote, provide incentive, motive, and wherewithal to flee, end of quote. Among the evidence presented by the government that appeared to sway the judge were items prosecutors have said were recovered from a locked safe in Epstein's home, which include more than $70,000 in cash, 48 loose diamonds, and a foreign passport which is now expired, displaying Epstein's photograph with a different name. By the way, his excuse for that was that, he had that in the 80s, and that was to protect against being kidnapped. Yeah. I've got a fake passport to keep from getting kidnapped. Really? Yeah, that's two, folks. Oh, boy. In addition, the judge noted that Epstein's vast wealth and influential contacts have provided him with the means to pay individuals to assist him in unlawful endeavors, including potentially fleeing the jurisdiction. Epstein is currently being held at the Metropolitan Correctional Center, a federal detention facility where he's being kept in isolation, according to one of his lawyers. Like I said, put him on Rikers Island, and then he can complain about his country club prison living. Epstein is charged with one count of sex trafficking of minors and one count of conspiracy to engage in sex trafficking of minors related to alleged conduct that occurred between 2002 and 2005. He has pleaded not guilty. He's accused of having paid girls as young as 14 to have sex with him at his Upper East Side home and his estate in Palm Beach, Florida between 2002 and 2005. Prosecutors say he used employees and associates to lure the girls to his residences and then paid some of his victims to recruit other girls for him to abuse. The charges by New York federal prosecutors, unsealed earlier this month, came more than a decade after Epstein faced similar accusations in Florida. In 2007, he signed a plea deal with prosecutors in Miami that allowed him to avoid federal charges and instead plead guilty to lesser state prostitution charges. By the way, the attorney that set up that sweetheart plea deal just resigned from Trump's cabinet, Alexander Acosta, as we mentioned last week on the show. In asking for bail, Epstein's attorneys have touted his spotless 14-year record with meticulous obedience to the law since he pleaded guilty and was required to register as a sex offender. But New York federal prosecutors and the judge questioned his behavior in recent years, pointing in particular to what prosecutors described as a vast trove of lewd photographs of young-looking women or girls that agents found during a search of Epstein's Manhattan home in the hours following his arrest on July 6th. The judge also cited recent reports that an attorney representing several women who say they were sexually abused by Epstein accused him of having improper sexual contact while serving his jail sentence more than a decade ago. The attorney also alleged that Epstein had inappropriate contact with some women as recently as 2011. And the judge said Epstein has not always been compliant with his registration and reporting requirements as a sex offender. The judge cited Epstein's attempt in 2011 to get the state court to reduce his sex offender status from the highest level to the lowest, an effort the state court judge rejected. And he pointed to a recent New York Post story that said Epstein has never reported as a sex offender to New York law enforcement. Throughout the opinion, though, the judge appeared to return to one consideration above all others, describing it in court as the heart of this decision: the well-being of the people Epstein is accused of abusing and of his potential future victims. The judge told the court Thursday, quote, "I am not suggesting that a different bail package would be appropriate because I doubt that any bail package can overcome danger to the community." End of quote. That's a strong statement right there from a judge. That no amount of bail is going to offset the potential damage to the community. That's strong stuff. Now, get back to the circular firing squad comment that a listener posted on our official Facebook pages, because we posted this story. This is by Brian Sladisko at the Associated Press. This is published July 15th. Listen to this. This is from Washington. Senator Kamala Harris bemoaned the influence of the powerful and connected elite last Tuesday when she called on top Justice Department officials to recuse themselves from any matter related to Jeffrey Epstein. She said their former law firm's work on behalf of the financier accused of sexual abuse calls into question the integrity of our legal system. Yet the same day, Harris's husband headlined a Chicago fundraiser for her presidential campaign that was hosted by 6 partners of that law firm, Kirkland and Ellis. That is according to an invitation obtained by the Associated Press. Harris, a California senator and Democratic presidential candidate, was one of several White House hopefuls to blast the handling of Epstein's case in Florida a decade ago, when his lawyers negotiated a deal with federal prosecutors that allowed him to avoid the possibility of years in prison. But her decision to move ahead with the fundraiser hosted by Kirkland and Ellis partners while criticizing the firm underscores the tension that can arise when a politician's rhetoric collides with their need to raise money to sustain a presidential campaign. This is the pot calling the kettle black. This is hypocrisy at its best, folks. You really need to open your eyes, some of you liberals out there, some of you centrist liberals need to open your eyes and pay attention. Turn your brain on and use it. Paul S. Ryan, an attorney for the good government group Common Cause, said, quote, "If any connection with Kirkland and Ellis is a stain on senior Justice Department officials, why isn't a connection with the law firm for the receipt of campaign contributions a stain on her own campaign?" End of quote. Ian Sams, a Harris spokesman, said there wasn't a problem with accepting the campaign contributions because the firm is big and the partners who hosted the fundraiser didn't work on Epstein's plea agreement. Sams adding, quote, "The people involved in that case have not supported her campaign, and she wouldn't want that support anyway." End of quote. But she's still taking it from their partners. Does she not understand how hypocritical this looks? Apparently not. The firm and the 6 partners named on the event invitation did not respond to requests for comment. The Epstein case has roiled Washington this month after federal prosecutors announced fresh charges against the financier, who is accused of paying underage girls for massages and then molesting them at his homes in Palm Beach, Florida, and New York during the 2000s. Donald Trump's Labor Secretary Alex Acosta resigned on Friday. That would have been Friday, July 12th, which we reported on this very show, over his handling of the case. As a U.S. attorney in Miami, Acosta met with Kirkland and Ellis lawyers and agreed to a deal that allowed Epstein to avoid federal trial by pleading guilty to state charges and serving 13 months in jail. The new attention being paid to the case has also drawn attention to Attorney General William Barr and Deputy Attorney General Jeffrey Rosen, who both worked for Kirkland and Ellis. Harris, who is a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee, said it's necessary that they recuse themselves from involvement in the matter to avoid even the appearance of impropriety. In a statement released hours after the Chicago fundraiser, Harris had the audacity to say, quote, "In our democracy, no one, no matter how powerful or well-connected, is above the law. Yet Epstein's deal, secured by his lawyers at Kirkland and Ellis, calls into question the integrity of our legal system and undermines the public's confidence that justice will be served. End of quote. The hypocrisy, just on its face alone, is astounding. Barr is recused from any review of a 2008 plea deal, but has said that he doesn't need to do so with the current case. Before her election to the Senate, Harris was the Attorney General of California and was elected to 2 terms as San Francisco's district attorney. Her husband, Doug Emhoff, is also a high-powered attorney who works in corporate law. So it is perhaps little surprise the law firms have been one of the top industries that have donated to her presidential bid, with Kirkland and Ellis being no exception. Her campaign declined to say how much was raised at last week's event, and the sum won't have to be reported to the Federal Election Commission until October. Records show that a handful of employees and partners of the firm donated about $6,000 to Harris during the first quarter of the year, a drop when compared to the $12 million she raised during that time. Sam said, quote, "It's an international law firm with thousands of employees, many of whom probably support Kamala Harris because she's a tough prosecutor who actually knows how to put away predators, unlike the Trump lackeys who protect them." End of quote. Well, here's the thing. Who's she tough on? Who's she a tough prosecutor on? People with minor drug charges. Take a look at her record, folks. We have a story posted. We still have it on our Facebook page. And it talks about Kamala Harris and things that she did when she was district attorney of San Francisco. Go back into our archives and listen to the shows. It's unbelievable. You folks really need to take a listen. Take a look at this. Do your research. It's not a circular firing squad. It's progressives calling out centrists for their centrist behavior. That's all it is. Nothing more, nothing less. The problem is that you never hear the complaints from the progressives. You hear it from the centrists. And that's just how it is. And since I'm talking about marijuana, I do have to play the appropriate music. Oh yeah, Little Sublime. I smoke 2 joints in the morning. I smoke 2 joints at night. Actually, I don't smoke, but anyway. A lot of people do, especially in the state of Michigan, which recently, through a ballot initiative, approved recreational marijuana. Well, there's been talk that there was going to be some expungements. Well, this might be possible now. I have this story from WZZM television in Grand Rapids. This is out of Lansing. More than 6 months after recreational marijuana was legalized in Michigan, a new bill was introduced in the Michigan legislature to expunge criminal records of people convicted of marijuana offenses or possession. Senate Bill 416, introduced by Senator Jeff Irwin, Democrat of Ann Arbor, would clear the records of more than 235,000 people in the state, all without requiring them to apply to the court that sentenced them. By the way, I should let you know, Jeff Irwin has been a past guest on this show when he was a state representative representing Ann Arbor. He was term limited out, and now he's serving in the state Senate. According to Senator Irwin, only 6% of people eligible for expungement apply because of the process. In a release, Irwin said, quote, "Automatic expungement for all of our lowest level cannabis offenders allows people to move on with their lives, and making it automatic is essential because many people can't afford an attorney or the legal fees associated with an application. Cannabis is now legal in Michigan, and petty offenses in the past should be no barrier to getting back to work or school." End of quote. According to Irwin, the bill also extends rights to people who are charged with growing or possession with intent to distribute charges. Right now, Irwin said the bill will give opportunities for those people to apply to a judge to expunge their records. He continued, quote, "This is the next step in ending the unsuccessful prohibition of marijuana that incarcerated and punished Michigan residents unfairly for decades. After last year's mandate from voters, I am hopeful that a majority of legislators will vote to give Michigan residents back the opportunities that were unjustly taken from them." End of quote. Well, we applaud Jeff Irwin on his efforts to get the expungement bill. Again, that's Senate Bill